WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Welcome to another edition of Real Family Talk.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday evening out there. It is awesome in Orlando. The weather is beautiful as usual. Beautiful like it's supposed to be. Love this place, man. I tell you, every week, I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere. I love this city. We're gonna jump in, man. There's a lot going on in the news over the last week. We're gonna get in. Let me go ahead and introduce everybody that's in the building with me tonight. Mr. King's in the building. How you doing, Mr. King?
I am doing great. How are you, Brother Real?
I'm doing awesome, brother. Doing awesome. Better's in the building. How you doing, Better?
Better. Working on getting better.
Better is working on getting better, a.k.a. Miss McCrae, just in case you didn't know. And then Mr. Younger Brother, a.k.a. Younger Brother Jeremy is in the building. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm great. How you doing out there? Radio Land, we still here. It's a lot of changes going on in the city, but we here.
We are here, brother.
And we gonna be here.
We are here. Let's dive in. So the first story I wanted to dive into real quick, just get y'all a quick opinion on this situation. Over the weekend, of course, we had the race incident happen with the race driver Tony Stewart. Ended up hitting a driver out in the field named Kevin Ward Jr. actually, and Tony Stewart is obviously getting a lot of flack about this. But if you go back and you look at the video of what happened, it seems that what happened is Tony Stewart, they were doing what they call sprint car racing. I know black people are like, what? What's a sprint car?
Right.
That's what I said too, so I'm with you.
I didn't know what it was.
It's essentially a tiny car racing. That's what I'm going to call it. But they call it sprint car racing. And so Tony Stewart clipped this guy's car as they were going around the track. And the guy had an accident. And so he felt like, Tony Stewart wronged him. So he got out of his car in the middle of the race and basically charged out into, the track and waited essentially for Tony Stewart's car to come back around, and then was basically trying to yell at Tony Stewart's car in the middle of the track. So cars went by him. From what they tell me, from what they described of the tracks are dirt tracks. At least this one was. This one was a dirt track. The track itself is very dimly lit. And then when you're driving those cars, your view is actually very limited, where to the point where you really can't even see what's happening to your right of you, because the person sits on the left of the car. You really can't see what's happening on the right. So you're limited visibility already, dirt track, and it's dimly lit. This brother's on the middle of the track yelling at a car that's going about 120-something miles per hour. What's happening? Tony Stewart's catching a lot of flack because his car hit the guy and he died. I'm going to just say, obviously it's a tragic situation when a person dies, but I think that person holds some of the blame when you're in the middle of a track with cars going 120 miles per hour trying to yell at somebody. Like, how you going to yell at the car anyway? It's going 120 miles per hour. Like, what were you thinking? But of course, everybody's dogging Tony Stewart. I mean, if you look at the news, it make you think Tony Stewart purposely ran the man over.
That's what a lot of people were really trying to say. He was trying to get back at him. It's some unwritten rule in NASCAR that, if somebody wrongs you, you wrong them back. But it's like, I just can't believe that he went out there and ran that man over on purpose.
Right. That don't make sense.
You can't make me believe it.
But then I also can't believe a person would go in the middle of a race that's dimly lit with cars going 120 miles per hour talking about you going to yell at somebody in the car? What?
Man, I don't care if it was daylight outside. Why did he get out the car running in the middle of the track?
Well, I was wondering, what is the protocol if a crash happens? I thought you're supposed to jet off the track as soon as possible.
No. Well, where he was, he would have had to cross all those cars to jet across the track. They say what should happen is you should, one of two things. If your car is about to explode, then obviously you get out the car.
Right.
But if your car is not about to explode, then you should really sit at, let's say the furthest edge away from where the cars are moving and wait for the rescue team or whatever they call it to come and help you and fix your situation, whatever your situation is, get you off the track, maybe replace your tire if that's what needs to happen. But you're supposed to theoretically wait. But apparently there's no written rules in the sport that you're mandated to do that, and if you don't do that, like there's a fine or something to sort of punish the fact that you didn't follow the safety protocol. Because apparently it's a lot of times people will do something related to what this guy did, I should say. Because they even say Tony Stewart has had incidents where he was doing some racing and he got out of his car and threw a helmet at another car and stuff like that. So I guess the rule is you should stay by your car if you can and wait for them to come give you the help that you need. But there's no fines, there's no penalties, there's no repercussions if you choose not to follow that. Obviously, the repercussion here wasn't, it's unfortunate that he got, I don't know if he got hit. I've been listening to a lot of stuff. Some people say he got hit. Some people say, I heard a report today that he probably got clipped as Tony Stewart was trying to get around him, and then accidentally, as he was trying to swerve around him, one of his wheels, he may have got caught in the wheel and got spun off, or whatever the case may be. But as far as the cops are concerned, it would seem that they're placing no fault on Tony Stewart, but public opinion is pretty much trying to run him down the railroad because of his past. He has attitude problems, I guess you can say. He likes to get angry from time to time. So they're saying due to his anger management issues, he more than likely did purposely hit the man. But I just can't imagine that he purposely tried to kill somebody.
Right. Even if he tried to bump him, I don't think he thought he would kill him. And from the video, it looked like they said his back tire bumped the guy, but I guess that was
and again, I just can't believe
a big bump.
Like, and no fault to this dude that got in the middle of a track with cars going 120 miles per hour. Like nobody's even addressing that really. Like, come on, man.
Because
that's what I don't understand.
They waved the caution flag to make everybody slow down. But like you said, that group that was coming when Stewart was coming, he was still trying to slow down with the rest of the people in the front.
Crazy.
Sad situation.
It is just a sad situation. But again, foolish if you ask me to go into a track where cars are driving 120 miles per hour.
You got what you deserve.
407-894-1680. 407-894-1680 if you want to join any of these conversations. Obviously, another sad story that happened this week. Over the last week, we had Robin Williams pass as well due to suicide. Sad situation.
Is that what they're claiming?
Yeah, they're saying it's suicide. They said they found him with, he apparently cut his wrist and hung himself.
They say he tried to cut his wrist.
And hung himself with a belt. You in his closet.
Why are you laughing?
Because, man, that's propaganda. Don't nobody believe that Robin Williams killed himself. That's the same thing they said about Whitney. Didn't they say Whitney Houston?
Turn off his mic, please?
Didn't they say Whitney Houston killed herself? I'm going to keep my mouth closed. Though.
They were saying, well, if you know Robin Williams' history, he had a real bad problem with drugs. I mean, you talking about
and depression.
Well, depression too,
Severe
but
depression.
I know about the drugs because they were saying even back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s with Richard Pryor and that whole little gang, them being in the comedy clubs together, that was a normal occurrence of their drug use.
Yeah, but multiple years later is when you decide to kill yourself. I know how society works, and I don't believe that one bit. And anybody who does, you are a fool too.
Okay.
Come on, brother. We're not going to disparage the man.
I'm not trying to. They are already doing that by saying he killed himself.
He was suffering from severe depression.
Yeah, severe depression.
He was
Who told you that?
In rehab last month trying to get himself together and
Lauryn
pull
Hill
himself
in
together.
rehab.
And depression and mental illness is a very serious problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem in America especially. I mean, you just think about what's going on with a lot of the guys coming back from the Afghanistan wars and the Iraq wars. I'm sure a lot of those guys are going through PTSD in addition to depression because,
they were coming from what now?
the Afghanistan
The ones
and
coming
Iraq.
from the war.
Oh, okay.
War.
And now this man was a comedian. He was not coming from
No,
the war.
my
So
point
let's
is-
let's use an example and make a point about something that deals with robbing, not with people who coming from wars when they moving dead babies.
No,
and
what
that's
I-
a completely different story.
Listen,
versus a
depression can
comedian.
happen in
Depression
anybody.
happens.
Yeah, I
in
understand
general.
that,
It's a
but so does-
huge problem in America.
No.
What are
And
you
because the
saying?
depression
I'm
typically
saying that it's
does not go
propaganda.
diagnosed.
That is not.
Okay.
Just because they told you that's what happened does not mean that you have to be foolish enough to believe it.
Here's not what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to question what his family says he had.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
We're not gonna question
I would
what the
sell
people who
whatever
knew
story
in his life.
his family has to say, and if his family was lying for somebody, that's on his family. But I'm not going to speculate that his family was lying for somebody. But yeah, depression is a huge problem, man. That goes undiagnosed in our country, where a lot of people who have depression don't even realize that they have depression. So it's definitely a huge issue. It always shocks us when people on his level, if you will, people who are successful, people who have, for all intents and purposes, as the average person would see it, all the money to provide himself happiness that you would think he needs, if you will. So again, he's been working consistently over the last 2 years because they announced he has actually 6 movies that will be coming out over the course of the next few years. So clearly the
Clearly
man's
that's propaganda. Clearly that's
the man's been-
propaganda.
Hey, brother.
Think
I'm
about
not-
how that
I'm-
works. So
I'm
let me
not
get it
gonna
straight.
debate
You
what
know
his
the
family
definition
said.
of propaganda.
I'm not going to
gonna deal
debate
with you
what his
today.
family said. But so
I'm trying to tell you, man. It's clear Hollywood. After you die, now we're gonna drop a bunch of movies with you. Now we're going to get paid for your. That's what happens. That's what Hollywood does. If you
All right,
know,
brother.
it's propaganda.
Okay,
Now they're gonna
brother.
drop 6
I got you.
movies.
I got
6
you.
movies with Robin Williams.
6 movies, yeah, that's what he's
Okay.
got. So depression, though, like I said, it's a serious problem that typically goes undiagnosed in our country until it's too late. I just want to, out of respect, like I
Thank
said, they
you.
said he had suicide. And I want to give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So, if you're out there and you're going through some of these things yourself, don't know quite what to do, that number, National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, is 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255, which is actually 1-800-273-TALK. So, it's a huge problem in America. We don't deal with depression enough, especially in our communities. Because we typically don't want to go talk to nobody about what's going on in our heads. We're typically a little skittish about that. I ain't going to tell them people what's that. They don't know what they're going to do with that information. Hey, it's a huge problem. If you're going through it, definitely find somebody to talk to, and see if they can help you through whatever it is that you're going through, so that you don't end up in that situation. So sad situation, regardless of how you see it, propaganda or whatever you want to call it. Sad situation regardless, man. Anytime anybody loses their life, it's a sad situation.
Very sad.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, even if you don't want to talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever you might call it, because we do have that stigma in our community. But, that's what pastors are there for. And then trust that if the pastor is not trained or equipped to do it, that they lead you in the right direction, which may be to a therapist. You might be a therapist in the church or a counselor in the church. But trust that guidance, because, we have that stigma. I don't want to talk to a therapist. I don't want to talk to a psychiatrist. They're going to think I'm crazy, whatever the case may be. But that's what they're here for.
And even with that, like our community, we want to pray it away. And I'm not saying that's where you start. You need a relationship with him. You need to be praying. You need to have people to help you. But we also need to recognize when there's a serious mental health issue that is a medical situation, and we don't look at depression and thoughts of suicides as a quote unquote real medical issue, but it really is, and a lot of us need help. And if it doesn't lead to medication, just somebody who is a medical professional can speak to you and help you through these problems so that you don't end up committing or attempting to commit suicide.
Exactly. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That number again, National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. 55, man. Find somebody to talk to, the pastor, counselor, your friend, your mama, your daddy, your husband, your wife, whomever. But find somebody to talk to and see if they can at least help you through whatever that situation is, man. So, again, like I said, RIP to Robin Williams, man. 407-894-1680 is the number, 407-894-1680. Another story, one of the topics that I wanted to address tonight is there was a new show that came out last Thursday. The show's referred to, it's called Black Jesus. Is the name of the show.
Black Jesus
is the name of the show. And it's catching a lot of buzz because it was done by the young man Aaron Magruder. If you're familiar with the Boondocks, a lot of people like the Boondocks. It started off as a comic strip that he did in a newspaper. Then he turned it into a television series. Got Granddad and Riley and what's that little boy name? I can't think of what his name is. It got Riley and what's the other little kid name?
I don't know any of the characters.
You don't know any? What's the other little kid name, Mr. King?
Huey.
Yeah, Riley, Huey. You got Granddad. You got Uncle Rucker.
Uncle Ruckus.
Uncle Ruckus, my bad. Uncle Ruckus, that's my favorite character. You got Uncle Ruckus. Anyway, Aaron Magruder created the Boondocks, and now he has Black Jesus. Now, just to set you up for what it is, for those who may not have heard about the show or what we're talking about, 407-894-1680 is the number. But the premise of the show, Black Jesus, is you have Jesus living in present-day Compton is the premise of the show. So he's living in present-day Compton, and obviously he's interacting with the citizens of Compton. Now, here's the thing that really got me, okay? Just to give you a basic idea of some of the things that happened in the first episode, which again, like I said, it came on last week. So in the opening scene, we find Black Jesus, one, living in a car. He's homeless.
In a van.
In a van, living in a van. Which is okay. Okay, Jesus, he was a poor man, if you will, relatively. And then he walks, he meets some people on the street, and he's talking to the man. And he's greeting him as usual because they're very familiar with Black Jesus. And within the first couple of minutes, the man doesn't like what Black Jesus has to say, and so Black Jesus feels the need to cuss the man out because the man cussed him out.
There you go. The man cussed him out.
The man cussed him out, and Black Jesus cussed him back out, if you will.
Instead, I still love you.
And told him at the end, I love you and God bless you.
By default.
By default. In the next few scenes, we find Black Jesus chilling, if you will, with a few of the brothers from the neighborhood.
At a barbecue.
And we find that Black Jesus apparently likes smoking marijuana, so much so that apparently he is a marijuana hogger, and the brothers are upset with him because he smokes all the marijuana and doesn't like to share.
He doesn't like to pay for it.
Right, exactly. He's not sharing. He's not chipping in with everybody else. As we continue along, we find Black Jesus then ends up participating in what essentially is a drug run. And again, he's the driver as they go to secure drugs.
He was actually there to make sure nothing happened, because they said, hey, we may need one of your miracles. And see, you're saying all of this, but you're not explaining what's really going on, because
Black Jesus did it, bro.
Before most people go on a drug run, most of them pray to Jesus. Most of them, Jesus bless me, and they're just showing it in a different way. Because this is exactly what people talking about God while they smoking weed, and they talking about Jesus. People were talking about Jesus before they going on drug runs and after they just left church.
All right, so let me just finish. And you can give me all the rationalization of why he's on point. So then we find him, and then the last thing I'll say is that one of the goals that Black Jesus has for Compton is he wants to build a neighborhood garden, which in and of itself sounds like an awesome idea. But what we find is that the neighborhood garden that he wants to create really is the main goal of it. The first goal, I should say, is to basically grow marijuana plants.
That's
And then the second goal, of course, is to grow also natural fruits and vegetables for the community. But it's a combination thing where we're trying to grow marijuana and grow fruits and vegetables for the community. 407-894-1680. Here's my question. Now I know if you've watched the Boondocks, you know Aaron Magruder. The whole premise of the shows that he does is about satire. That's what he is. If you watch any episode of the Boondocks, they're always got some kind of satire on something that's going on in society today. And so obviously, I would assume his goal here is to create satire as it relates to Jesus as it goes on and people's perception of Jesus today. But my question is, in describing those basic concepts of what happened in the show, is he going too far? Is he going too far? Did he cross that line? Did he disrespect the concept of what we take religion to be in portraying black Jesus, or Jesus, I should say, this way, particularly a black Jesus this way? 407-894-1680 is the number, 407-894-1680. I'd love to hear from you, to hear what you think about this. Again, 4 things that I noticed about the show. 1, Jesus, like I said, the man cussed Jesus out. Jesus cussed him out and told him at the end, bless you, love you, God does too. Jesus went on a drug run as the driver so that they could so that they could secure some marijuana. Jesus apparently is known as the marijuana hogger of the neighborhood. Smokes it all up. Don't really like that. Doesn't let everybody else get their fair share, if you will. And his goal, or his saying on the show is, what is it? Smoking, drinking, and chilling. I believe is that's the thing he likes to say.
That was the name of that episode.
Smoking, drinking, and chilling.
That's the name of that episode.
47894-1680. Now go. I know you've been dying to tell me, Mr. King,
because it was a great show. These days people forget that Jesus was in Bethlehem, and Bethlehem is in Africa. They forget that part, and they go off of that, that Caesar man that they see in those pictures. So let's start with this garden thing. The garden thing was there. Jesus told them, hey, man, how about we build this garden? And they was like, man, we're trying to, the thing was, this is what Jesus was saying. He was like, you spend all this money going to re-up and buy other people weed, and you getting them rich when you can build a garden and have your own stuff. That's what the message was that Jesus was telling them. If you want marijuana, won't you grow your own garden, and then you can have your own marijuana? And then, he was saying, get your own vegetables and grow your own everything, which is what we should be doing in America. You should be growing your own everything, but we don't do that. That was the message. He was saying, you can grow your own marijuana if you want to. It's a smart thing to do. You can also grow some vegetables. You can grow your everything that you need. But if that's what you want, marijuana, okay, you can put that in there. But the purpose wasn't the marijuana. Now, as far as the living in the van and being homeless, that's what Jesus was. Jesus was home. Jesus didn't have no house in the Bible or nothing like that. So
I agree.
He didn't have none of that.
I totally get that Jesus was homeless.
Now again,
that makes sense.
I'm
with you.
At the same time, the Bible never talks that Jesus wasn't upset. Jesus was a human. He may not sinned, but getting upset and cussing somebody out is not a sin. The last I checked, I don't know. I'm not the most blessed man, but I don't know if I cuss somebody out. I know they're sinning. But Jesus did cuss the man out, and then he said, I love you by default, though. I still love you, but, that's what separates humans from androids. We can love a person but hate, robots and computers can't do that. And that's what Jesus was showing. I hate what you're doing, and I hate what you're saying, but still got love for you by default. As far as smoke up all of the weed and didn't want to pass it and didn't want to spend his money on it, that one... I don't know. We're going to blame that on the Indians because the Indians the one that introduced that to everybody, and America just can't make no money off
hold
it.
On, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. McCray, this brother is clearly...
I'm a fan.
He is clearly a fan.
I'm a fan because you have to read between the lines.
407-894-1680 is the number, 407-894-1680. Mr. McCray, what'd you think about the show, Mr. McCray?
As I sit back quietly, I'm all for comedy. I love a good laugh. I want comics to do what they do and be funny. I find this not a bit funny. I didn't see the show. I couldn't pull it all up, but I watched the trailer, and that alone let me know that this is not something I want to watch. When Jesus is literally cursing, like not just fussing at somebody, literally cursing, MF this, MF that. No. I didn't think it was funny. In Compton, smoking weed, cussing people out. I just didn't think it was funny.
The whole point behind that was he's trying to show you how society makes these rules, not Jesus. Society tells you that cursing is bad. Society tells you that marijuana is bad. Jesus never said none of those were bad. And that's what's the S word you used? I like that word. Soilence? I don't know that word.
Satire?
Satire, there you go. That's the whole, I have to Google that word.
Well, here's the thing about that. It's not about that. What makes those things a sin is when you know, let's say like this, when you were coming up, you didn't cuss in front of your parents because you felt that was wrong. So when just because you get grown and now you feel like you've grown and you can say it, but you know you should not be doing it because it's a sign of disrespect, that's what makes it a sin. It's not even about words. It's about, because when you know in your heart that's not something you do when you're respecting somebody. And it says love thy neighbor as love thyself. That's what makes it a sin. It's not even about the words. It's about the disrespect. Now, to be perfectly honest, when I first saw it, I did laugh because it was funny. But then you got to go back and look at it in hindsight. He out of pocket, way out of pocket. Me personally, he way out of pocket. Now, evidently, I'm not gonna sit here and say he's not a Christian because he could be. You know, people, sense of humor say sense of humor. But to me personally, I just think he's way out of pocket. He could have picked another way to make his point. He could have did the black Jesus did, but Jesus didn't have to be cussing and smoking weed. You know, he could have been with them and in the midst of all these things. But with the cussing and the smoking weed and all that, it's like he wasn't showing himself separate from anything. And that's what a lot of the things the Bible's talking about, separating yourself from the world. You know, Jesus talked about that. And it's the fact that he wasn't separating himself. To me, it wasn't even so much that he was there with them when they were doing all these things. That's not even a big issue to me. But the fact that he was basically just acting just like them, and just because he wrapped it up at the end and said, oh, well, but I love you and God bless you and this like that, I mean, to me, that don't make it right.
I think he's really going deeper than that, though.
To me, it's not that deep. You know,
really
some stuff you don't, to me, some stuff you just don't play with.
Right. And
Right.
that's
To that level.
Exactly.
You don't
And
play
that's
with
why
some stuff.
I'll
Exactly.
agree with you when I'm with you when you say I don't think he's a Christian. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Couldn't be.
He couldn't be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He
Like
has to have other beliefs.
Right, and
He has to be
that's why he was
agnostic in
that's why
some
he
way,
was
shape, or form.
comfortable
Right, I'm thinking no beliefs.
he was comfortable doing this. Like I said, I don't want to sit back and judge him and say he's this, that, and other. But most people, most Christians, you consider yourself Christian, even if you may say don't not necessarily consider yourself Christian, but you believe in God, you kind of wouldn't feel comfortable doing this because, like I said, to me it just. With the whole cussing and the smoking weed, if he was even just maybe cussing, but then the fact that he was sitting on the stoop with him, getting high, like, and
Like
you know
it's what you do.
Yeah, it's what you do. I mean, because I've been in that environment, and he was kicking it like this. How we kick it, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's the way he did it. You know, it's you know what I'm
see,
saying?
In the Bible, there was a time where Jesus went and ate with the I forgot what the people was called, and they was like, Jesus, why you don't want to come eat with us, with the royalty, with the kings and the queens?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus was like, nah, I'm gonna go in here with the thieves and with the bad people that y'all consider outcasts,
Right. It's not
and I'm
wrong.
gonna mingle with them.
Right.
But
that is what that came from.
I can mingle with
Hey,
you, brother, but I don't
but
have to do
again,
what you do.
Hey, at the same
Again,
time,
I don't have to drink the bottle
I don't
again
got
'cause you
I
doing
don't
it.
got a problem. Like I said, it's not the fact that he was in the environment with me. It was the fact that how he placed them in that environment with the cussing and the smoking weed. Like I said, he was kicking it like one of the fellas. That's what I'm saying. It's one thing for him to be in the midst and educating while he in the midst, but he was kicking it like he was on the block with the homies. And
Right.
this is what it was. Every day, this is what we do.
Right.
I just happen to be the son of God.
And that's the thing. Exactly. That was the thing that got me is it's like you said, there was no remorse in what he did.
Right.
In terms of like you said, he was one of the homies. This is what he did. This is what Black Jesus does, you know, as this being portrayed on this particular television show, which to me is like, wow. Like at what point did we begin to, I think, just disrespect the concept of religion and
Right.
what Jesus means in the Bible You know, at what point, when did we really just lose all of that? I mean, because clearly, to portray Jesus as really just a man is what they're portraying him as. Even though even in the episode he does, quote unquote, miracles, if you will. I guess that just because I have no other word to refer to it as at the moment, you know what I'm saying? you know, even though he does that, so he certainly sets himself apart in that he is not a regular man, if you will. But the idea that this man, again, who is the Son of God, is kicking it on earth and essentially acting no different from your average human that is, you know, quote unquote, sinning every day. Incompetent. You know, it's really like, I didn't know what to expect when I heard about the show coming. But to go that far,
right?
I didn't expect that.
And that was only the first.
And that's the
right.
first.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It's
and
like, well, where is he really going?
You
with
already know. It's going.
Really
It's going
in
somewhere.
the first
man.
episode, his motto is smoking, drinking, chilling.
That's not his motto. That was the name of that episode.
That was the name of the episode.
I know that was the name of the episode.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said,
but,
I don't know.
But as he summed it up at
even
the
if
end,
it's not his motto,
he's trying to kick it so that he can smoke it. That was his happiness, smoking, drinking, and chilling. So I mean, to display him in that manner, you know, it just, like I said, it blew my mind that like I said, he took it that far. Like when did we just disrespect the concept of religion so much to the point where, you know, we joke about the idea that it even exists.
Right.
You know?
And then, of course, of all the shows that could get produced or greenlit in Hollywood, this is the show with the black cast.
I'd expect that.
I mean,
I would expect this show to get greenlit.
Of course it would.
Here's what I would
that's
say,
the
though.
problem.
But you're talking about Hollywood. I mean, that's one.
That's the problem.
Well,
That's what
you're
I'm
talking about Hollywood.
about.
Number one, controversy. It's Cartoon Network. You know, it's Cartoon Network. This is ratings. This is a ratings grab. I mean,
and it was a great ratings grab.
It was a great ratings grab because they blew everybody away.
They beat all the other shows that came on at that.
They do. They
time.
blew everybody away.
Was like,
it was a ratings grab, and then number two, Hollywood ain't nothing but evil anyway. What do you? I mean, this is. I expect. I'm not shocked that the show is on at all. I'm not shocked that it's on. You know, I'm more like I said, but like you say, you know, if he's not a Christian, then I can't say I'm surprised. You know what I'm saying? I'm not surprised. This is what you expect from the entertainment industry, especially in the way it's leaning today, the way it's going. You know, when you understand, no, I'm not King Mike over there about the conspiracy stuff. I don't know it as deep as he was, but this is what it's going. You know, this is what they do. This is part of what they do. You know, you make it funny, you pushing it to lighten it up. So now you can bring something else behind it.
That's what they do.
You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly what they do.
This is part of it. That's all.
Right. 407-894-1680. What we're talking about, there's a new show on Adult Swim, which is Cartoon Network, called Black Jesus. And the premise of the show is that Jesus, who's black, of course, is currently living in Compton. And the show is just about how Jesus interacts with the people of Compton. And so we've only seen one. The first episode came on last week. That's all we've seen is one episode. But in that episode, what we see Jesus doing is obviously Jesus has no problem cussing you out. He will cuss you out in a minute if that's what it takes. Jesus loves to smoke marijuana on the show. It is certainly one of the top things that he has to do to begin his day properly. That's the way the show brought it across. He needs that to get his day going right. What are some of the other things he did in the first episode? In the first episode, he also went on a drug run to basically secure some drugs so that they can be sold back in the neighborhood. And then one of his goals for the neighborhood is to build a community garden so that, as Mr. King has explained to me, thank you, I guess, Mr. King, so that the neighborhood can grow their own marijuana in the neighborhood along with some fruits and vegetables so that they can stop paying other people to get their marijuana. 407-894-1680. And my question, you know, to you out there is just, you know, what do you think about the premise of a show that would display Jesus in this particular light? I mean, what is that? How does that affect what you think about the show, religion, and what other people think about religion? Do you think it's okay? I mean, the goal of the show, I guess, is satire. It's done by Aaron McGruder, who wrote on the Boondocks. And that was his whole point on the Boondocks, was satire. And quite frankly, I'm a big fan of the Boondocks. I think the satire and the way he brought it across on the Boondocks was clever. I thought it was very clever, which to me, and part of my criticism of this show, 407-894-1680, Black Jesus, is just that. I get that he's probably shooting for satire here, but a man that, to me, if you can do what you did with Boondocks, there's got to be something better that you could have thought of to do with this concept of Black Jesus. You know, to me, that's another reason why I hold it and look at it and go, what were you thinking, bruh? Because Boondocks to me was very good political satire,
right? But
this is just seemed like just cheap television.
It's in his eyes,
just to be foolish.
But in his eyes, that's not what it was. Like we were saying, we don't think he's a Christian. Now, if you're not a Christian,
and that's what it is.
I can see you doing this because because you know a lot of times, you know, when people criticize the Bible, they like to pull these parts out of the Bible. And what he's doing, he's pulling things out the Bible, and he say, well, the Bible say Jesus did this, so he would be doing this. You know, it's like his interpretation of possibly or him being funny about how he thinks maybe Christianity is ridiculous or whatever the case may be.
He's making a mockery
right
of white Jesus. And that's how we're as Christians, we looking at it and we're taking it to heart because we're Christians and we was raised on this white Jesus. Meanwhile, he's not a Christian. And he's raised and taught other things, and so that's why he believes other things and he's portraying it in the way that he was taught. You know, because it's a lot of people that are 5%ers in other religions that they see it differently than how we see it as Christians. So we're going to look at it like, you know, like standoffish because we're Christian. But people who aren't Christian and they look at it and know what he know and learn what he learned, they're looking at it like, yeah, that is true type thing. You know, we're Christians, so we're looking at it with different sets of eyes than people who aren't Christian.
I guess, brother. I guess
I can't,
and
I won't.
You were raised as a Christian, so of course you're not going to see it.
Now to that point, Brother King, you are correct. It's like we don't have their frame of reference.
You don't.
We don't. From that standpoint, I can understand. So, but you know, me personally, at the same time, I don't disrespect other religions. But but that's just me,
right?
And that's just like some group of people. But you know, but that's a lot of the things when people do when they talk about Christianity, when they want to poke holes in it. That's what they do. You know, they a lot of people they just disrespect. Or to me, if you, whatever religion you are, when you're true to heart in that religion, one thing is to teach you. I don't care what religion it is. It's all about love,
right?
And you don't disrespect other people's beliefs or whatever the case may be. Not to this extent. And I'm not talking about a debate because a debate is a debate. You know, you can debate all your day, but like to me, it was just like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
like I don't know you, but come on, man.
It was too much.
But like I said, if that's not his belief, that's not belief. I can't expect him to do anything different than what he believes.
Right. So that was one thing that I thought I saw this past week. The other thing, of course, is on Saturday in Missouri. We had the death of a young black male by the name of Michael Brown happened in Ferguson, Missouri, over the weekend, and unfortunately, you know, we really don't know a whole lot about this story. We know that a young man is dead. There's been reports that at some point during this altercation between the young black male and the police, the young man had his hands over his head, they say, and was basically asking the police officers to stop shooting him. Obviously, he didn't listen. So we at least we're hearing that. We don't know who the police officer was that shot him, but we do know there is a city in turmoil right now, protesting and trying to get answers so that we can have so we can try and make some sense of how a young man who, for all intents and purposes, from what they tell us, was never in any kind of trouble. Was actually scheduled to start college this past Monday. Unfortunately, though, the family had a funeral on the day he was supposed to start college now. And the police department in Ferguson and in St. Louis County has really brought no answers to the people that make sense, that can at least get some kind of closure or semblance of how did he end up dead, you know, and shot. He didn't have a gun on him. You know, a lot of unanswered questions that nobody's answering. And so you have a city in turmoil. They were looting on Sunday night in the city and looting things. And again, we're still, he died on Saturday. It's Wednesday, and we still have really no concrete answers as to really what happened or where this particular situation is going from the police department. So you have a city in uproar. 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680. I'll just take you guys' thoughts. What do you think about what's going on with this situation?
It's all bad. It's all bad. And then the little bit of news that's coming out now, the protests are still going on. Not the rioting like Sunday, but like armored cop cars and tanks are keeping the people, the protesters who are out now, back and threatening them. I mean, these people look like they're in Iraq, the police officers, and they're in their SWAT gear and everything, trying to hold back this crowd. It's insane, some of the pictures. And just now, 2 journalists were arrested, one from the Huffington Post and one from Washington Post. They were arrested in the McDonald's near where all this is happening. Just the cops burst in, arrested them. They were able to tweet that they were being arrested, and then of course their employers contacted somebody, and they got released. But the problem is, like, why are you keeping that information from the world? Like, why is this a problem now? Now that people are protesting and no longer going to take it.
Right. And in Ferguson, for those that if you haven't heard the story about Michael Brown and what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, again, the story is over on Saturday, a young black male was shot and killed by police. The story, from all intents and purposes, what we kind of do know is when he got shot, he was not carrying any kind of weapons or nature. From what the family says, this young man has never been in trouble with the law. He was scheduled to start school on Monday, to start college. He had graduated from high school and started college on Monday. And ultimately, like we say, we know he ended up shot and dead. And where we're at with the cops, they really haven't given the full story of what happened and how he ended up dead. They haven't released the officer's name of who actually made shots to kill this young man. And another story that they're reporting, the eyewitness that was there to witness it all, the cops haven't even spoken to him.
Still.
So there's a lot of unanswered questions. It's like I said, it's a city in turmoil. Ferguson is actually in Missouri, right outside St. Louis, is where the suburb of St. Louis. I see we have a caller, Mr. Wilkinson. How tonight, sir?
Doing great. I'm down here in the big old town in Orlando, Florida.
Yes, sir. What's your comment tonight?
Well, you're talking about the word cursing, and the young lady was kind of appalled with the guy that got out and said some words. I had to deal with this situation in church because one of the ministers kept talking about people cursing from church. And I just had to explain to him that the word curse, God can only curse. Nobody else can do that. No man or woman can curse another man or another woman. But they can use that adjective, which is profane language. I think that's what she's talking about, that the guy was on the show doing. And
Yes.
called himself Black Jesus.
Yeah, calling himself Black Jesus. That's right, sir.
Mm-hmm. So I most of the young people of the day have heard grandma and all of them talk about, well, hey, stop that cursing. Well, nobody can curse but God.
Okay.
And if you look at the curse that God put out, the first curse was on man, and then it was on woman, then it was on the serpent, and those curses are still there today. Nobody could do that but God.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So-
Go ahead, sir.
So I hope the young lady is not offended by those adjectives that the young man used in that series. And they need to just give the truth to people. He's using bad language. He's not cursing nobody because he can't do it.
He's using offensive language.
Right.
I completely understand, Mr. Wilkins.
All right. We thank you for calling,
Okay.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you for your call.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So profane language, Mr. Wilkinson says Black Jesus was using on the show. You were going to say something, though, Ms. McCrae, about Michael Brown.
Also part of the media, how they're showing him. Same thing like with Trayvon. The guy had a Facebook page of multiple pictures, yet they continue to use the one picture of him throwing up the peace sign in some jeans and a jersey where he just graduated from high school. They could have used his cap and gown. They could have used some pictures with him and his family. But no, they use the one that will fall in line with what they're trying to portray, the propaganda of an angry black man who is a menace to society, and he deserved to die. That's what they're telling us. This whole there's always a reason why this kid, somebody was shot, and not just the confrontation is killed, shot multiple times.
Yeah, they shot him, I think they say like 4 or 5 times.
Multiple times. So you're trying to kill. You're not trying to stop the situation from happening. You're trying to kill.
Now, I've heard the whole Trayvon comparisons, and Benjamin Crump actually is the Michael Brown's family's lawyer now, so you're definitely going to hear a lot of those comparisons, and especially with Al Sharpton involved and stuff. But I don't know. I think the only comparison I see is that we have 2 young black males that are dead, but I think the situations and what led to their deaths are completely different, in my opinion. So I don't like I said, yes, they're both black males and dead, but I think the circumstances of how
I wasn't comparing the 2 situations. I'm talking about the presentation of both boys or any of the guys, these black men that are continued to be shot. They don't choose photos that they're going to choose the photo that will lend to that narrative of they were wrong, they were in the wrong, they were being thugs, they were being menaces to society, as opposed to trying to find something else that would show an image other than that.
You know what I think the problem here is that we obviously had another death in LA this weekend too. Ezel, I can't think of the guy's last name. Ezel Ford also was shot and killed by police under strange circumstances. But what I think we're missing, because a lot of people are asking the questions, how do we prevent this from happening to more young black men? I think the question that we aren't answering is how do we change America's perception of what we believe and think about black men? I think that's how you change it. We have to change America's perception, because I think most black men will tell you that the general perception of the black man, especially in America, and we see it played out mostly in the police department, is that they're scared of black men. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you have on a suit. It doesn't matter if you're wearing jeans and a T-shirt, if you're wearing a hoodie. It doesn't matter what you have. They're typically scared of black men, and that's the question that I think we're not solving that problem. We're not having a dialogue to be able to move beyond that fear that I believe America has of the black man. 47894-1680. So when you say, well, what do we do to stop this? How do we prevent our young men from dying? Well, we need to figure out how to have a dialogue with America so that, 1, I think we can at least acknowledge that the problem exists, but 2, can we convince America? Can we have a dialogue? Is there anybody that can begin a dialogue so that America can at least understand where the problem lies?
No.
That's the question.
It will never happen. They're inferior of us. We are greater than them. So why would they not be afraid of us?
Well, all men is created equal. So I'm not going to say they're inferior to us. I'm not putting myself on a pedestal that puts me and places me above every other man on the planet. But I'm going to just say, again, is there a way to overcome that? A lot of that, goes back for me. My thought process on having a black man in the office of president. A lot of that comes back to me, where no, he can't solve the problem, but he can help us start a dialogue. And that's where I think why it was important for me to see a black man in office is to start these kinds of dialogue, because at the very least, they respect what he has to say, whether or not they agree with it. They respect what he has to say, and what he says sparks conversation. Which is the reason why he commented on Trayvon Martin to say he's like my son. Which is the reason why he commented on this situation. He didn't say he was like my son here. He just talked about the tragedy of it. But him commenting makes people have conversations, which, and I don't think he does it enough. I'll say that, But I think that's kind of where it has to come from. It has to come from a higher place than where we sit in this studio and have this conversation. 407-894-1680, 407-894-1680. I know you got a comment, Jeremy.
Man, it's just crazy. When you first heard about it, it's more to the story because, at first you said, okay, the police shot a young black man who's laying dead in the street. So I was just thinking, okay, what's going on? But then when I read the article about the witness account of what he was explaining what was going on, it ain't no words, man. I mean, they were saying, basically, what I gathered from what he was saying, they were walking down the street and they started getting harassed. The guy was the cop was harassing them, and then being very aggressive with them. Said he almost hit him with the car. And they said they was just they was almost where they were going. They was trying to get there to go. He telling them to stop. He's yelling at them, using profane language. And some kind of a tussle began. The guy said he was going to shoot. And the guy grabbed his. They say while he was holding on to him, he grabbed his gun and started firing at him. He said he broke loose. And they started running, and Michael Brown told his friend to run. So they both started running, and while they was running, the cop kept shooting, and that's when he hit him a couple more times, and that's when he raised his arms and turned around and tell him and said, "Hey, I don't got no gun, stop shooting." And that's when he shot him 2 or 3 more times. And that's one of the crazy things about it is like, what in the world was this man thinking?
Fear, man.
I know.
How tall is he? I heard he was 6'9", like 200.
I don't know. He might have been a big guy. I mean, I'm not disputing that.
Like I
said,
but
let's say you don't already. Yeah, I mean, obviously he was scared. But to me, though, okay, if you are scared, why are you approaching him with that negative demeanor? Mm-hmm. Like if you see 2 guys walking down the street and you want to question them, whatever, pulling over and start using profane language and just coming aggressive with them and almost hitting them with a car, is that the protocol? Obviously not. But
I would think it's not the protocol, but again, fear does weird things to people.
Fear
does weird things to people, and I'm not justifying his fear.
Fear does do crazy things to people, but it's a difference between. And to me, I don't think everything is about fear. And let me say this why: if you truly feared somebody and you wanted to question them, if you truly feared them, you're not gonna approach them in a negative demeanor. Now, what it is now if you don't, you may have a little fear toward them, but if you already have a negative impression of what you think they are, of course, you go approach them aggressively because you got this pistol on your hip, and at the end of the day, you go shoot them and say, I thought he was going to kill me.
And then you got a radio where you can call for backup.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
So
that's what I'm talking about when you truly fear. Now, I was not necessarily walking down the street, but I've been in situations where a cop done stopped me and questioned me, but it wasn't all of that. It wasn't all that. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that to say this, it's a way to do it properly.
I agree there's a way to do it properly. But when you look at the stats of this city, it's a city of about 16,000 people.
Right.
It's a city that is 2/3 black, and it's a city that the police force has 50 some odd people, and only 3 of them are black. So it's a city with a mainly white police force. So I'm not saying that everybody on the police force is somehow fearful, but I guarantee you if there's 55, which I think that is the number, 55 cops on the force, and 52 of those cops are actually white, that there's a small percentage of those white cops that are fearful of the black neighborhoods that they have to travel.
I don't doubt that.
So,
I know they are.
So that's what I'm saying. That there's a level of fear involved in why you think that this is the only way you can gain respect or get control of a situation is by barging into it and being overly aggressive.
And that's what they teach you. They teach you have to take control of the situation before the situation even becomes a situation. And that is not the way you're supposed to do it. I don't know, but that's how they're training police officers.
407-894-1680 is number 407-894. Again, we're talking about the situation in Ferguson. Young man Michael Brown was shot on Saturday by police, And ultimately, we don't have a whole lot of answers as to how a young man who was unarmed ended up dead on the street. So a lot of the stories that are coming out of the city suggest that, as Jeremy was just saying, that the cop in the situation was very aggressive towards these young men for essentially no reason at all. And ultimately, they also said there was some kind of altercation with the cop as well. And then ultimately he ended up firing on the young man and killing him. There's stories of the young man at some point holding his hands up in the air and begging the officer not to shoot at him prior to his death. So there's a lot of stories, not a whole lot of answers from the cops or anybody in that situation. And so you have an entire city, Ferguson, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis, that is just in turmoil. They've been protesting since the incident happened. There was looting on Sunday night, and they're just looking for answers to try and understand how a young man who was leading a life that was hopefully going to take him somewhere beyond where he was. He was getting ready to go to school beyond high school on Monday. Unfortunately, they buried him on Monday instead. And, just how does that happen? How does a young man that isn't armed, isn't committing a crime, end up dead in the street? That's the question that they're trying to answer down in Ferguson.
And my whole thing is to me, it's just like it's the lack of respect is what I don't like for life. We talking about with the young people today, how they killing each other with the lack of respect, but there's also with some, and I say some because it's most definitely not all. Most definitely is not all. But it's just a lack of respect for people that some law enforcement officers have. So it's like when they approach situations, instead of calming situations down, what I know they're supposed to do, they flame them up. Where it could be small, it could be taken care of with a conversation. But when they start getting all out of pocket and you start disrespecting another man, at the end of the day, you may be wearing a badge and you may got a gun, but I'm still a man. I'm still walking around. I still pay taxes. I still have rights. When you disrespecting them, how else do you expect people to react to the situation?
Right. They expect you to bow down to their authority.
And is that, and then when you're talking about with the reporters and everything, it's like, and then the quashing of the information that they're trying to do, what they're trying to quash the information. Like they trying to make this a police state. You know what I'm saying? It's like, right. and it's like it is like say it's a small town, so they trying to keep it under wraps so it don't get too crazy. But be real, it's too late. That's why they had to let the journalists go. And
it's huge now. If they're now trying to put an assault on the freedom of speech, these journalists from Huffington Post, Washington Post,
now you can't touch.
You can't. So they're really just making it worse. So what they're trying to do is calm this down and keep it quiet, but you arresting journalists. No, you're making it even bigger now. Because now it's not even about, this is going to grow beyond Mike Brown, unfortunately, if they continue it like this. So a police state, you got SWAT dealing with the community, and then you're arresting journalists for telling the news.
Well, that's
just
because
the beginning.
They took out the local news, and so they really don't want anything that's going on reported outside. Right. So that's why they arrested them, because they don't want nobody to know what's going on. It's a no-fly zone. They blocked off the roads. Nobody can get in. Nobody can get out. Right. It's really a testament of what's going to happen in the future. They got drones flying around. Like they know what's going on, and like you say, it's the same thing that's going on in Afghanistan. Yeah. So they already prepared and have practice on how to do it.
It's insane.
And let's see, and I mean, you're laughing, but this is the testament to it. It's like it's in a small level right now, but something like this happened. It hit national news. Fortunately, it was able to hit the national news before they was able to squash everything real quick. Mm-hmm. And now it's taken off. Because now just imagine if this didn't get out. We wouldn't have known nothing about this.
I'm sure it's been multiple times that it hasn't gotten out.
Exactly. Which is why that's probably why they had the riots and the loot. Mm-hmm. Because this is not new. Same situation with in LA in '92. It wasn't the first time. It just got caught.
Right. Well, it was looking at another article that talks about the crime rate there. And the crime rate there is actually pretty low, even compared to some of the other cities that surround Ferguson. So we're not talking about an area that is typical of having a large amount of crime going on. And to talk about that population, it is 63% black is what population is. But some of the other stats they had, they say 86% of the stops are black, and 92% of the arrests are black people as well. And there are 53 officers, so I was a little off, 53 officers, and so 3 of those are black, so 50 of the officers are actually white in that particular town of Ferguson. Like I said, it's a sad situation. I'll certainly be keeping our eyes on to see what happens in that situation. I hope it just doesn't. I hope it doesn't get out of hand. I know that we're looting. Looting is never a good thing, especially when you're looting in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
there's no good that comes from that, because a lot of times what happens is that the businesses that get looted a lot of times don't come back to the neighborhood. So you just lost some of the economic power of that neighborhood because you looted the restaurant, and now it doesn't have the ability to be able to come back and rebuild itself. So looting doesn't solve anything. You know, maybe it makes you feel good for the moment, but at the end of the day, it's definitely not helping the neighborhood or anybody else in the neighborhood. So we'll see what happens, man. So we wind it down. Is that what you're trying to tell me, brother? Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. He's telling me it's around the wind down
in their neighborhood.
So we want to thank you for listening to the show
There's been
tonight.
more than one in the street.
but the message would have got across.
That's true.
The revolution will not be televised.
It will be televised. We want to thank you for listening tonight. We will be here next week. Same time, same channels, 9 p.m. is the time, Real Family Talk. Just remember that we are on WOKB 1680 AM, your urban empowerment and inspiration station. And find us on Facebook, find us on the internet, realfamilytalk.com, and also Twitter. We'll see you next week. This is your host, J Real. You can follow us on Facebook, Real Family Talk. You can follow us on Twitter, Real Family Talk. The website, realfamilytalk.weebly.com.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
If God's been good to you, this is what you ought to do. I don't care what it is, but do something.